I'm John Seacott, executive editor of the Brewer Magazine. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer Magazine podcast. We are sponsored by Keg Logistics. You can go to keglogistics.com/brewermag for more details. Don't forget, 24 hours a day, we're available for your business resource needs at brewermag.com. And of course, right here at the Brewer Mag Podcast, you can find us on YouTube and Spotify. Make sure that you are liking and subscribing. Well, today we're taking a jump back into our July-August issue and our cover story interview with Jen Briggs, who was the CXO for Carl Strauss Brewing Company at the time. I caught up with Jen at the 2025 Craft Brewers Conference in Indianapolis for this chat, and she spoke about her time at the San Diego Brewery after a long career in the craft beer world and organizational development, along with how she looked at bringing a fresh but respectful vantage point to a legacy brand like Carl Strauss. She walks us through the early days of her role, how she immersed herself in focus groups, asked hard questions, listened to customers, even saying things like, I didn't even know about this brand. We're talking about Carl Strauss, and how that influenced the next chapter of what the brewery has planned out. We talked about how data and intuition collide, how culture gets built or even rebuilt, and how a craft brewery leader thinks about employee engagement, brand relevance, staying true to the roots while also looking to the future. This is from the cover story, Leadership by Listening, the CXO strategies Jen Briggs sees for Carl Strauss's next chapter. Here is my chat with Jen Briggs in this week's Brewer Magazine podcast. This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now is the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
I joined them, well, because when I love Chris Kramer and Matt Ratner. But I think after going through everything with Modern Times and all of that, and watching things with Anchor happen, I got a lot of pings about that, because you probably remember there's like a little short phase where people were hoping that they could sell Anchor to the employees, and then the Chobani thing happened. Just these companies that are, to me, iconic founding companies, like I value that a ton. Part of that's probably, influences by Kim Jordan and, Sierra Nevada and Vinny and Natalie, like all these OG companies, they really matter a lot to me. So, being Carl Strauss is like the first post-prohibition brewery in San Diego. And I think people, especially, I don't mean to sound like an elder here, but like younger people don't remember there was a time when we didn't have this. And to me, it's less about products, but it's really more about the movement and the inspiration that I think that generation, the first craft brewers that came into it, brought to everybody. And so I love working with Chris and Matt and the team there, but really being part of an iconic brand that really helped helped ignite the craft beer movement. And they're just one of the OGs. So I love working with them.
That's cool. Now, how much did you know Chris and Matt prior? I'm assuming that you guys have had interactions over the years anyway.
Yeah, well, I knew Chris Kramer more.
Yeah.
Because, he's been on the circuit, forever, it seems, with everybody. And so I had met him more in relationship to New Belgium. I hadn't met Matt yet. And so when we started talking, it was funny because we went out to lunch and we started talking about maybe doing some stuff together and what could be the projects. And I had just come out of the Modern Times thing, and I was just like, I really like processes and procedures, and I like frameworks, and I like, a well-run business. And he's like, that's what we got, So I was like, phew, It's like, okay, sign me up. But yeah, Matt is, I really enjoy working with him. He's wicked smart, really quick. And I don't think you could be doing this for 36 years now, like they have. If you don't have that, and the combination of those two is really fun. Chris is outgoing and Matt is like deliberate, and they complement each other so well. So it's been
very cool. Now, this is pretty much a new role in for you at least, like with, was CXO there before? And like, it's one of those, I bet you're like, it was not made up, but you found a way to make it a piece of what you do.
To be honest, it's something we came up with when I was considering, when Maui ended up buying Modern Times. Garrett and I kind of came up with that there, and then I decided not to move forward with that, and so I just used it with Karl Strauss. But what I like to do is really to be that utility player, because over time I don't believe in organizational silos.
Yeah.
You need people who are experts in IT and accounting and marketing and things like that. But this was a Kim Jordan thing, is when we were on the executive team there, is we had to be business first and then knowledgeable in our specific things second. So if you couldn't be a business person first, you just, that's it. And so I like being that utility player and being well versed in all parts of the business. So then you can make better decisions. And what I believe in is helping everybody in the company make better decisions. So everybody needs to be in some way, shape, or form knowledgeable about the business of running the business.
Yeah.
And then better decisions just happen across the board. So CXO just seemed to encompass like, what is it? Chief Experience Officer. It's kind of borrowed from tech.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of experience things there. But to me, the experience isn't just like perks of being a consumer, perks of being an employee. It's about, how you interact with the brand. And that's everything. Like, it's all the little touch points, no matter if you're a consumer or an employee.
Yeah. And, because you've had experience as a CEO, you've had experience in HR, it's a good combo for you. That's why I was like, it seems like it was a role made for you, but I'm sure, like you said, you kind of made it up as you went. And how does it translate into what Karl Strauss needed at that point in time?
For them, then and now, it's not literally a multi-generational company. I don't know. I saw it listening to Bart's talk this morning. After 36 years, you do have many generations of employees. You have generations of consumers that are drinking these products and visiting the brew pubs in different ways. And so I think for a lot of people at this conference right now, that is the thing that they're trying to do, is they're trying to introduce their brand or their products to a new generation of people and trying to figure out how to do it. And that's essentially kind of that legacy with Karl Strauss is continuing, so it won't be 36 years, it'll be 75 years, and it'll be 100 years, and that's their aspiration. And so that's every little step of how do you connect to people, and it changes.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm interested in as a human, is why do people decide what they decide? So why do you decide to pick that beer? Why do you decide to pick that job? Why do you do these things?
Yeah.
And so, that's all of us in business is trying to figure out, why would you pick my beer over that competition's beer? And then how do I make you want even more of that? And an employee, why do you choose to work here? Why do you choose to be high performing? How can we get more of that out of you? Those are the secrets we all try to unlock.
When it comes to just like stepping in that first week, first month, 100 days, whatever it is, like, how have you had to adapt what they are doing already and be able to mold it, see where they're at, move to where you want to go, or adapt in that role to, okay, well, this is how it's going to be. I have to adjust as well. I mean, have you seen the positive changes, some challenges?
I mean, positive changes with Chris and Matt specifically. They're very open to the future. And I think that is incredibly important. They're just core to who they are. They're learners. One of their values is to make people happy one beer at a time. So that's a very what does happiness look like for different eras and different ages?
Yeah.
So for them, I like how open they are and how open they are to what the future can bring. Because some leaders aren't that way. They're like, this is our recipe, this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're always going to do it. Well, that kind of locks you in to a very specific product or a very specific era or a very specific consumer. They're not that way. So that's, I think, the opportunity and what I love about it. On the challenge side is, I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits. Have you read that book?
Mm-mm.
It's a great book. But we all just have habits.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we've done, and we've done it that way for a long time. And a lot of times it's unconscious or even subconscious. And so when you come into a legacy organization that's been around for so long, there's just things like, oh, this is just the way we've always done it. And this
Right.
is just the way we've always done it. And so the newer organization, the easier it is to change because they haven't locked in on those things. Legacy organizations are harder because they've probably had success because they did it this way 10 or 15 years ago. Well, because you did it that way 10 or 15 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work now.
Yeah.
And they know that logically, but it's the underlying day-to-day habits of how people work together. So that's the challenge with Carl Strauss and any organization that has that much practice working together for that many years.
Sure.
So for them, I think the great thing, again, is that they're open-minded, and they do want to be around for many, many years, and that requires that.
Are you doing, like, when it comes to how you want to see things and show proof that it's going to work, is it data driven? Is it experience that you have? I mean, what has been this first 2 years of making adjustments? Where are you getting that from?
It is data driven, obviously. I mean, that's, I think, one of the evolutions of craft brewing is everybody has gotten more data driven. There's a lot of data consultants here at the conference, which is great. And now with LLMs, large language models, like, we can feed stuff in, and so we're able just to be smarter with the help of the computers, and so all those things are good. But then I'm going to steal this. This is from my old coworker, Greg Owsley, and so he did a lot of the branding, like around Fat Tire and that kind of stuff. But he has a saying: it's not about pillars, it's about particulars. So the data is going to tell you about trends, patterns, but when it comes down to experience, it's like, what is that particular thing? What is that particular piece of your brand DNA, your company DNA, that's going to ignite excitement with customers, ignite excitement with your employees? And so data doesn't tell you that. It'll kind of help narrow it down. Yeah. And then that's where intuition, art. One of the things that we did is we did professional focus groups. Rented, I'm sitting behind the mirror, taking copious notes and all that kind of stuff. So much fun. So much fun. And you're just listening for that gem, that the one thing that one person says that you're just like, oh, that's interesting. And so there was this fellow in the focus groups with Carl Strauss, and I'm guessing he was in his mid-30s. And he said, Carl Strauss, the man, master brewer Carl Strauss, and then where Carl Strauss is now, he's like, it's the old world bringing it into the new. And he had this really wonderful way of saying it. And he's in a focus group with, I think there was 6 or 7 other people around the table telling his version of the story about Carl Strauss. I was like, him, what he said. Like, that's, you're looking for the unlock.
Yeah.
And he just told the story in such an elegant way. I'm like, who is this guy? And he was a moderate craft drinker, and he wasn't a Carl Strauss loyalist, but he had this story that was part of his understanding of the brand.
Yeah.
So, it's a combination of data and then understanding what people think of your brand, not what you think of your brand, what other people think about it, and trying to see it through their eyes.
Yeah.
So it is kind of easier sometimes as a newer person or an outsider to come into an organization and do that kind of work, because all employees, all founders, all CEOs fall in love with their brand, as they should, but sometimes it blocks them from seeing how other people see it.
When did you guys do that focus group thing?
I think it was about almost a year ago.
Okay.
Now.
What and had it been done before, like in any aspect, or is this like something that you thought would be needed there?
Well, another person, another tenured craft brewer helped with it. I don't know if I can say his name or not.
Oh, okay.
But so he had done several of them with other things. I think it might have been the first this level of professional focus groups that Carl Strauss has done.
Mm-hmm.
So we did 12 of them. So I sat through like 12 over and over the course of 3 days, like listening. And some of them are tough to listen to.
Sure.
And you're sitting in a room listening to these. And so I know Carl Strauss had gotten a lot of consumer input. You know, we had done, I did a consumer survey with their most loyalists, and we just did it like online and had a series of questions that we asked people,
Mm-hmm.
and those helped inform the questions in the focus groups. But I think it was the first time they had done something like that deep and that thorough and that to that degree of professionalism.
Yeah. You feel beat up after that?
A little bit, because
Yeah.
the other thing is too is you learn from customers. This is where being in love with your own brand isn't good. You learn from customers like, I never heard of them, don't know. Oh, isn't it that red trolley, or didn't really like their IPA, or so you'll hear a lot of really negative things about it. So you kind of have to sit through that. Or in San Diego, people bring up Ballast Point, or they'll talk about how wonderful your competitors are, and then you're sitting there like, we're more wonderful than them. Come on, and in San Diego specifically, one of the things people bring up is Stone is the original. They're the OG. Stone is a great brewery. They aren't the original though, but I think Greg did such a fantastic job of how he approached the marketplace. He kind of became the voice of San Diego.
Right.
And so then people forget about Carl Strauss, and especially Carl Strauss the man. I took courses at Siebel, and some of my textbooks had stuff written by Carl Strauss the man. So I had known this, amazing master brewer who helped bring quality and process into the world of craft brewing. And I saw that, and I'm like, why doesn't everybody know this? And then I have to remember that, not that many people actually care. They don't, it's not that they don't want quality beer, but a lot of people just don't want to go into the intricacies of brewing. But you sit and you listen to these stories and you're like, oh, ouch, or like, they should care about that, or they don't know us, or so there's a lot of that. But then you hear the wonderful stories of Red Trolley is, I think, an iconic beer, and you'd hear people talk about like, that was the first craft beer I ever had. And I heard similar stories to that when I was at New Belgium with Fat Tire. You have these beers that have just been around forever, and I think both of those are just super sessionable. They're not like overly hopped. They're just really great, solid beers. And so you'd hear that kind of gateway of like, that was the first beer I ever had. And then you start, I'm sure you hear a ton of stories like this too.
Yeah.
Like that was, people have a special relationship. For me, my first beer was Coors Banquet.
Okay.
I'm from Colorado, and that was before Coors was the Coors that we know now. And people have these memories of the first beer that they drank, and to be a part of somebody's life like that is really special. And so, but they're tough to sit through.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, since you were talking just about, your craft beer journey. Did you set out when you were going to school to do this, and how did you fall into it?
No. So when I was in college, my undergraduate degree was in community health education.
Okay.
So that's just like about building healthy communities. And so I thought I would be in public health. And one of my internships that I did back in the day was actually with Coors Brewing in Colorado. So they were building, I think they were one of the first corporations to do this, but they actually built a gym for their employees. So we went in as a public health system and learned about it. And all of that, what I learned is that business can actually be a more powerful force for good sometimes than public health organizations. I think our health departments are incredibly important, but business, you kind of have a carrot and a stick as an employer. Like, if you want more productive people, if you want them to be healthier, you incentivize them with insurance and teach them how to be healthy people. And here's this brewery who is selling beer, which is, we think of beer as an unhealthy product.
Right.
Maybe not you and me think of it as an unhealthy product, but society thinks about it as an unhealthy product. And here's this company that's like putting health and people and business and beer together. It's like, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But bottom line is that you can't make a lot of money in public health. And so I actually ended up selling health insurance plans. So I became a broker. So I was selling health insurance plans to companies and ended up with a great job with WPP. Actually, my company got acquired, and they're a global company. And so I learned a lot about being in a massive corporation, a lot about processes and procedures. And I also learned bad things that multinational global corporations do. And I just didn't really want to be a part of that. And so I just left. And then this little tiny brewery, they're like, well, we need someone who does stuff. And I was like, okay. And I remember, so I got the job at New Belgium, and it was pretty small back then. And they had just gone through a layoff. And I had done layoffs with like thousands of people in a bigger corporation. And I think they maybe laid off like 7 to 10 people. And that was so meaningful to Kim. Like, she almost teared up because it was horrible for them, the way they ran their business, the stuff they wanted to do, to have to do a layoff. And I was like, these people care that much about that. Like, I want to be a part of that. And so that's kind of how it became. They were at that point a third ESOP, about 33% ESOP. And I had managed stock options for executives in a public company. And so I think somehow we thought that translated to ESOP, which it doesn't.
Right.
But it's all math, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of became a part of that. And and that's how it started. And then, almost immediately I realized going into that I was an outsider, even though I didn't want to be a corporate person.
Yeah.
Coming into a small craft brewery, you're regarded as a corporate person. People even called us carpet walkers. So that's when I started taking classes at Siebel, because I knew if I couldn't speak the language of the brewers, I wouldn't really be accepted into the brewing industry. Because they'd do tests when I walked the floor of the brewery. They'd be like, "What's flocculation?" I'd be like, I don't know what's flocculation. So they'd test me. But yeah, and that's just how it started. And it was just to be a part of growing something that was an aspirational brand, that had really great products, that wanted to show that business could be a force for good. Like, it was just an amazing experience the whole way through.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
And you were there for almost a decade and a half, right?
Yeah, 13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I know that your name reemerged with Modern Times. What did you do in the meanwhile?
So after I left New Belgium, because we sold the company, and I really believe in the power of open book leadership and employee ownership. So I just wanted to do interesting things, and literally that was my goal, was to do interesting things. Okay. I just immersed myself in the ESOP world even more. I studied governance, corporate governance, and so I started joining boards. So I joined a corporate board with PFS Brands in Missouri. They had similar goals to what we had at New Belgium, and started doing that kind of work and just really immersed myself in strategy and governance. I worked for a while at the Beister Institute at UCSD, so I did some of that work too. And so it really was just I know this kind of sounds silly, but being open to things that were new and different. So I was chair of a corporate board of a Department of Defense contractor in Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
It was a partial ESOP. And so we started working on an exit strategy for them. So for that period of time, I didn't work at all with beer.
Yeah.
So fast forward to modern times is when I was at New Belgium, we kept an eye on modern times because they were doing cool stuff and they were getting people excited and they were getting younger consumers, and we're like, they're onto something. You know, we couldn't put our fingers on it, but we're like, this group of people's onto something. And then when the Me Too movement happened with craft brewing, I knew a lot of the people that worked there, or I knew of them too. I was like, this isn't equating to me of how all these things are happening based on the people that I know. And so I joined, Jacob started a board of directors. And so I was one of the first outside board members on the board of directors. So we started that. And then shortly after, you know, obviously when you join a board, you get all this transparency of information. I was like, oh shit, we have really big problems here.
Yeah.
And then ended up taking it over and putting it into a receivership. But I joined more for the employee ownership element of it, not just because it was a brewery. Anything that has to do with like open book leadership, employee ownership, and beer, like that's my three-legged stool of things at work. And they never quite got the open book leadership, but I did implement that quickly after I took over. But they too were an aspirational company that things went pretty horribly wrong. You know, and there was a lot of good there though still. So it was in the interesting things bucket though of like, okay, here we go, we're gonna ride this through. Yeah.
But you got to, I'm sure, learn a lot there between those two. You can see a lot of different things over your career to move into, you know, working with Matt and Chris. I'm sure they appreciate the wealth of knowledge and experiences, and like, oh yeah, I've heard of something like this happening. I mean, they must love having you around to be able to work through issues.
Yeah, I think that's something. I worked with this guy in Birmingham. He was on the board with me, and he'd always call it roadware. And he's like, well, they got some roadware, so they must know something. And then Sean Burcham, who's the founder of the company in Missouri, one of the things he likes to, when he interviews people, one of the things he likes to come up with is like, what have your failures been? And I think the roadware and the failures is really, really important. You can hire a consultant who can come in and tell you everything that you should do.
Yeah.
But you also need people that are going to be honest and be like, oh, I've been through that. I've seen that. Like maybe you shouldn't do it that way, or maybe you should do it this way. And the bottom line is the only way you learn that is through doing it.
Yep.
You know, I can see by the look on your face. You're like, yes. So, you know, why this stuff that we do here, the craft brewers, there's a lot of people who've been through it before. Why not just learn from each other? Like, why do I try to reinvent the wheel? Because odds are somebody's learned it, they've failed, some people have gotten it right. Like, this is what this industry is. You have a bunch of passionate people who really want to do good work. Why not help each other?
Yeah, and like, I mean, failure is the greatest lesson. And I mean, I was just talking to a guy yesterday that, I mean, he went bankrupt before he even opened up a brewery. Like, he was a restaurateur, realized it wasn't, you know, what he did wrong was stepped into a franchise situation. But then he was like, we're not doing that, but I know the restaurant side. I'm a home brewer. I know how to bring people in. So you know, those are the ones that, you know, you get the wide-eyed, happy home brewer story that builds themselves up. But sometimes it takes them to be knocked back down before they make that next step. So it definitely, for Carl, it hasn't had to be that extreme, at least for them, but they're reinventing themselves. Like, you know, and I've noticed that over the last 2 years that you've been there, just the different changes. How many of those are something that, you know, like the opening and closings of different places, was that something that you saw, this is, you know, is it tightening things up, you know, discussions internally, you to get you guys where you want to go, and whether it comes to locations, brands.
Yeah.
I know, there's been changes.
Well, like take San Marcos, for example. So that was a concept that was ideated even before COVID, I think. So way before that, but this idea of having an outdoor beer garden. And what I like about them is they're willing to try things. So tried it, and there's always a decision that you have to make. Everything we have is a series of choices, right? You're like, gonna try that one. So if you can, San Marcos is a good example of trying something, not having to put a whole bunch of investment behind it to see if it worked, and then you like scale it up, do it deeper, whatever that choice is. And so the idea of having an outdoor beer garden, but it also rains a lot. It's also really hot, and so the practical trying and being like, yeah, this didn't quite work, and being willing to fail fast, I think is generally a good quality.
Yeah.
But there's those things, and then there's also the go big or go home things of packaging redesign. I'm not talking about like the kind where you tweak up the colors and fine tune, but like coming out with like a new way that you show up on shelves.
Yeah.
Those are things that it's not like San Marcos that you can try it and be like, interesting idea, it just didn't work. Those kind of things, they're really sticky, and those are usually 18 to 24-month processes to redesign that, get your distributors on board, and then go big with all the Krogers and people of the world.
Right.
So it's understanding that dial of this needs to be really fine-tuned, or like, sure, let's try. So that's kind of, I think, what we have improved at Karl Strauss is this one needs to be buttoned up all the way. We're like, yeah, good luck.
Yeah. Are the fine-tunes still in the process right now? Do you guys see, obviously there's always flexibility and adjustment, but are there big swings that you guys have planned? Like what's next for you guys?
I don't want to call it a big swing. I think the work that we're doing now for Karl is homing in on what is the essence. When I look at Chris and Matt, like one of their stories is they were out, throwing football on the beach by Tower 10. And, they're just like, if you heard their actual founder story, it is such a fun story. And it's not like these two guys from Stanford decided to open a brewery. They were basically party planners, party creators when they were in college together. They turned it into a small business as young entrepreneurs at college. So it's not this kind of, two guys from Stanford. It's like these two rebels as students that became the party makers. And then they turned it into like, oh yeah, like we're tired of all that big beer. Let's like have this really good beer. And then, as Chris calls them, have Uncle Karl come in and help us. It's the story of young entrepreneurship, two people that were incredibly brave that took the chance to go first. And so we're starting to use this now, but we started this party. It brings in the elements from when they were young students. It brings in being first in San Diego and the bravery that it takes to do something that nobody else in that area had quite done yet.
Sure.
And if you look back to, you probably know these numbers better than I do, but if you look back to that 1989, I think there were less than
the list.
there were like 300 craft breweries at that time.
Yeah.
So it was a brave decision to try to do this for all those companies that were doing that. They were having success, but it was hard. A lot of people were getting it wrong. Beer quality was sketchy. And people were figuring it out, but being part of that first stage. And so what I think is for this kind of generation of drinker, let's say like 30 to 40, that being first and being brave and trying something, it's a feeling of being alive. It's a feeling of optimism. And I think we need that a lot in the world right now.
Yeah.
And so I think their founder story meets the moment in a really exciting way. So then we take that, we're like, how does that look on a package?
Yeah.
You know, what's that? How do we symbolize that on a label? How do we tell that story to people when they come into a brew pub? And so those are all the things that we're working on now. So it's less of it's not a left turn. It's actually like really homing in on why is this special, and helping a new generation meet that specialness, and helping the consumer see that they can give them hope for themselves, living their legacy as a 30-year-old, not waiting until you're 50 or 60 or 70 to look back on your legacy. You're living your legacy in this moment by the things that you start. Awesome. And so I believe in aspirational brands. I believe craft brewing, there's either a connectedness or there's an aspiration. We're kind of leaning more into the aspirational side of that.
How do you continue to grow as a leader for yourself, and what practices have you stayed resilient and innovative in all these ups and downs that you've come through? Like, how have you stayed resilient?
I kind of told a little. I don't know if you read that thing in craft. It was Good Beer Hunting.
Oh, with Kate.
Yeah, with Kate.
Yeah.
I kind of had to be resilient as a person. I was a very, very, very young mother, and I think what keeps me resilient all the time is I just believe in people. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but I just meet so many good people every day.
Yeah.
And it's learning from people, watching them. I love people watching, and I really do believe most people at their core are good people. Virtually all people at their core are good people.
Yeah.
I probably have, but I don't remember it. I've never met a person that wanted to wake up in the morning and go to work and do a bad job.
Right.
Never. Some people do bad jobs, but it's not because they wanted to. It's because something happened, something's going on with their family, something's going on with their life, and there's all the things. So I really believe in just humans.
Yeah. But it's not a Pollyanna thinking either. I mean, you're able to see that, people can move forward and have that. So yeah, it's a good thought process to have. I try to be as much as that as possible as well. It's always interesting, like you said. I've had employees. Yeah. I know how it goes. So this one is more towards like how you're working your job now, like having inclusive leadership, value driven. It seems more important now. It's probably always been there, just not as well defined. How does those qualities make a better business?
Well, informed input is more powerful than brainstorming. And so if you're not include them in the business of running the business, if they don't have some parameters for what you're trying to achieve, their input can't be that helpful. Then it's just like random, and it's like the suggestion box. Suggestion box are almost always bad ideas. Just don't do them, because then people just throw stuff in there, you get them, and then you have to go back to people like, sorry, that was a dumb idea. And people are like, oh, that's not, no, there are dumb ideas. There just are. So, why not inform people? Why not have people who understand things? Why not teach them? Why not grow them? So when they get to that point of innovation or ideas or creating something, they can do it and have a better chance of being successful. So that's just the bottom line is higher performing businesses make more money, more profit, are getting more directional ideas that are actually going to be helpful. And the managers aren't having to deal with just random, I said this to somebody today, it's like spaghetti on the wall ideas. You're like, thanks, that was a waste of time. We want to get them directed in the most productive way. And the best way to do that is to include them.
In your experience, what are some key elements to having that positive workplace culture? I mean, especially nowadays sometimes you take them as you can because of the amount of people. There's people that the industry is hard to find employees, but how do you find top talent right now?
Somebody gave me this advice a long time ago. It's like so maybe you have somebody you've worked with for 10 years. never look at the qualities of that person after the 10 years. Look at the qualities of the person when they started. Because most of us didn't know anything when we started.
Yeah.
We didn't. And so hiring based on those qualities, based on that, because you're going to have to grow some people and they're also going to have to buy in some talent. You're going to have to do both.
Yeah.
So you want the experienced people to kind of, back to our conversation, like, don't do that, do this, like, that help curate the choices. But you also need like that energy of who you were when you started. Like, if I asked you, like, what got you here, like, what,
right,
there were certain traits and qualities that you had that helped you grow to this. I want to find, the person, that version of you with the next people that I hire. So you have to be okay with like actually not getting experience, but getting people with a learning attitude, who have a tolerance for failure, who have resilience, that are going to be there with you. And entitlement is something like I have very strong opinions about. Like, none of us are entitled to anything except being treated fairly, working in good environments with people that you can trust. And when you have high trust environments, people can be more themselves and they're actually more productive when they're there. I don't believe in work-life balance. I've never found it. And I just, I think balance happens over the course of your life.
Yeah.
Not in a week or in a month or even in a year. Some years I've probably worked 2 years in 1 year. I'm sure you probably have too.
Oh yeah.
But then there's going to be other times, those special family moments that you get, that you hold precious to you. So to me, it's more about curating moments, not trying to find work-life balance. And you want to work with people that are kind of like that, who get the ebbs and flows of things and can do that. And then this industry, you brought it up, resilience might be an overused word now, but you're going to have some bad days, and you need people that can spring back from that and just keep going over and over again.
Absolutely. Last one. Everything's shifting. How do the leaders of tomorrow find their skill sets right now? Like, what is the key skill sets of the next 5 to 10 years in this industry?
That's a great question. Somebody once told me they worked with a great leader and they described him as a complexifier. What they meant, because I tried to look that up afterwards, I was like, what is this? What they meant is being able to take a lot of complexity and simplify it into actionable things. And I think that's it. Like, all this data, all these consumers, social media is like atomizing everything. Like, you used to have like this that you could follow and this, and now all of a sudden, consumers, I read the statistics, consumers are getting an average of 10,000 adverts at them a day.
Wow.
So whether it's in Facebook, social media, TikTok, name it. And so people are just having all of this stuff coming at them. Technology was supposed to make our lives simpler. It hasn't. It's made it more complicated. So you need these leaders who can take all of that, put their arms around it, and distill it into these like actionable nuggets, or these, to use Greg Owsley's word again, this very particular thing, like that thing here.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the skill, is just, I hate to wrap it into change, but change is happening faster. It's undeniable. Things are coming at us faster than ever before. So those complexifiers, if this is what it means, is people who can take the complexity and put it into simple, actionable steps to get their workforce centered around what's important, to set aside, like, that's noise, it's noise. I think those are going to be the best ones, because it's not going to get, hopefully it gets easier again at some point, but it's not going to get less complex.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I got to meet you in person.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.